All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota people, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Linda McFadden. I'm chairing this morning's panel, and with me is Marcel Lorando on Zoom and Richard Whitbread on Zoom. Our assessor this morning is Clayton Dyson, and our recording secretary is Louise Wally. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today. Ms. Wally, would you please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony?
Yes. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Clayton Dyson.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Applicant, please state your full name.
Vera Cates.
And do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the first item on our docket today is 493 Corridon. I don't think there are any preliminary items. Mr. Dyson, would you go ahead, please?
Okay, file number 221545. Roll numbers 1202155800. Address is 493 Corridon Avenue. Assessed value is at $1,156,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1961, with 11 suites and 11 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is the income value summary. There are 11 2-bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $937.31. The gross effective income is $118,529, with the expenses at $59,561. That brings us to an NOI of $58,968 at a cap rate of 5.1%. Comes to the value of $1,156,000. On page 4 are the rent comparables for the property. So I tried to find similar suite mixes around the same area, built near the same date. And you can see that falls well below the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period, The purpose is to show the individual cap rates to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived cap rates. And then, as you can see, we have our cap rates. They range from 3.6 to 5.74%. Page 6 is our cap rate table, and it shows the model cap rates from the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile. Continuing on to page 8 and 9 is the income and expense mailers. Just quickly looking at the income and expense mailers, if you remove the interest and the amortization, the NOI comes out to about $62,000, whereas we're at around $59,000, so looks like we're good on that. Page 9 and forward are some pictures of the property, some pictures of the interior and exterior, and that is my evidence.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do, thank you. So if we turn to your cap rate table on page 6, in looking at your range, can you provide information on the sales that are being used to achieve the range there? So for example, how many sales are included in what areas, etc.?
I don't have that information.
Okay. And then in looking at the 20th and 80th percentile, which is stated at 4.8 to 5.6, are you aware of what the entire range would be?
Like the lowest to the highest? No, I don't know.
Okay. And the broker cap rates are used as further support for the assessment department's cap rates, is that correct?
I guess to a point.
Okay. And would you agree they suggest nothing lower than 5% for low rise, with CBRE even suggesting a higher baseline than that?
That's what it says. Yep.
Okay. So looking at this property specifically, it's been assigned a cap rate of 5.1%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in comparison to the broker ranges provided, that would be on the low end, correct?
If you go by the broker ranges, yep. But we have other sales that support lower cap rates.
And would you agree this property is over 60 years old?
Yeah.
Would you agree there aren't many amenities to speak of in comparison to the newer stock that we're seeing?
It would be hard to say without comparing two properties.
But have you taken a look at the like property website to see what the amenities would be?
I'm not too sure of the amenities. I don't have that in my brief.
Okay. So if we turn to your page 11 for the property images, would you agree that the suite looks outdated and not renovated?
Yeah.
And would you agree the condition looks average at best?
Yeah, it looks average.
And you retrieve these photos from the property manager's website where they're used for marketing, is that correct?
I got it from the website, yep.
Okay, and then just a couple more. So if we turn to your page 5, cap rate evidence. So the purpose stated for providing the cap rates is to illustrate accuracy of the model, but only 2 of the 6 actually fall within the 20th to 80th percentile. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so we see.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay, and have you provided any workups as part of your direct evidence for these sales?
Not direct evidence. I do have rebuttal on these.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions, and I also have rebuttal when the time comes.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions, Mr. Lorno?
No, no questions at this time.
Mr. Whitbread?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
And I have no questions either, so you can go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you turn to page 2 of the brief, you will see our requested assessment of $1,022,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on the north side of Gordon Avenue, half a block from Confusion Corner, where Pembina meets Osborne and Gordon in the McMillan area of Winnipeg. So the property consists of a 2.5-story apartment block that was built in 1961. And the land area is approximately 6,028 square feet and is zoned RMFM. The total gross floor area is approximately 8,640 square feet. And the subject property has a total of 11 units, which are all 2 bedrooms. And there are 8 parking stalls noted. So below that, you'll see an aerial view of the subject property. And on page 5, you'll see a Google Map view of the subject neighborhood, just to get a better sense of what's around there. So if you turn to page 8, we have an overview of our income approach. So the primary issue here is cap rate. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.1%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study, which I'll go through a bit later. But just as an overview of our cap rate study, we have 2 tables shown here. So the first table shows our base cap rates based on effective year built, and they're assuming good quality properties in good locations. And then the second table below that shows all of the factors that we consider on a site-specific basis. In this case, we have not made any adjustments, but I've listed different factors that we've considered for this property. So if you turn to page 9, you'll see our income valuation breakdown. So for this property, you'll see we used an effective gross income of $110,593, and that's stabilized based on the most recent year of income for the subject property. Regarding expenses, we stabilize based on 3 years of expense data where available, and there are notes in the remarks column showing if we've used an average or a percentage. If no note is there, it could be assumed that we're stabilizing the expenses based on the most recent year. So just going through some of those expense items. So specifically, we've stabilized repair and maintenance at $1,530 per suite. So we do a detailed repair and maintenance breakdown. So I'll just go through that for the first property, and then it would be the same for the others. So if I could direct everyone to turn to page 26. So on page 26, you'll see we stabilize repair and maintenance based on 5 years of data. So what you'll see at the bottom of the chart is that we have our repair and maintenance total, our repair and maintenance less capital expenditures like roof, hot water tank, etc., and also less waste and snow, because we stabilize waste and snow separately. And then the bottom line is the R&M per suite. Now, where we do our stabilizations is toward the right-hand side of the sheet. So you'll see that 4 categories of flooring replacement, appliance replacement, painting and counters, cupboards and carpentry, we have specific values that we cap those at. Those values have been derived based on interviews with different property managers and different knowledgeable players throughout the city. And those values are listed there. And in terms of any additional stabilization we do, we will remove outliers. So for example, you'll see under the kind of purple column, windows and doors, we've removed 2018 as an outlier. And that's how we get to our 1530 a suite. So that will be the same for all the properties to follow today where we have all the data available. So if I can now turn to the cap rate study, which is a separate document, I'll just briefly go through that.
And this is what we have already, correct?
Yeah, it's so it's 160 pages. And am I good to proceed on that one?
Yes.
Okay. So if you turn to page 2 of the cap rate study, we start by looking at the city's cap rates. We note that they have a range for their cap rates of in the high 3s to the low 7s, with most being in that 4.8, 4.9 to 5.65 range. Toward the middle of page 2, you'll see we've summarized the broker cap rate reports. So the important takeaways here is that they're suggesting 5 as a low end for low rise properties. And additionally, what we're seeing is either no compression from last cycle or very low compression. Toward the bottom of page 2, we have some information surrounding interest rates. So the main point here is that interest rates are only one component of cap rate, and that the cap rates don't necessarily move one-to-one with the treasury yields. So on page 3, we've also included some charts surrounding the interest rate. Now these are national charts just to show the relationship overall between interest rates and cap rates. But we're not using these to specifically derive our cap rates since these are national. On page 4, we get into some discussion about the different factors that we consider on a site-specific basis for adjusting the cap rate. Now, for the properties that we're dealing with today, we haven't done many adjustments, just to a couple. But in terms of some adjustments that we do consider and that are relevant for today, building type and construction. So we see wood frame construction has more risk, tends to deteriorate, not as high quality of a construction material. And additionally, if we see multiple buildings, that would have more risk because there would be more roof area, more building systems to maintain, rather than if they just chose to kind of build upward rather than out. In terms of another important characteristic would be building amenities. People have been working from home, which is a trend that predated COVID, and we're seeing that there's more demand for amenities such as in-suite laundry, balconies, gyms, etc. And then if you turn to page 5, just another characteristic to touch on would be supply and demand. We're seeing a large amount of new supply of multifamily, which creates challenges for the existing stock due to competition. So if you turn to page 6, we have our cap rate sales that we've looked at. So in terms of the most relevant sales would be the first 3, and those pertain to this cycle. We've also included some sales from the prior cycle, just to show the evolution of our position and just to further bolster some of those age categories. On page 7, toward the top, we have a chart breaking down sale price per suite, and that's stratified by effective year built as well. And then the middle to bottom of page 7, these are the 2 tables that will be present in all of our briefs. So that would kind of conclude the body of the report, but just to touch on a couple of the appendices, just to refer to page numbers. So page 8 would be the start of Appendix A. This is a sampling of city cap rates, not to be used as a direct comparison by any means, but just to show that similar age properties have different cap rates assigned. So just that there is some level of adjustment there, but we're just not completely sure what that would be. Page 14 for your reference would be the start of Appendix B. That's just the market reports, just the background in case you wanted to reference those. Page 20 is the start of Appendix C, so just the backup information that we're using in regard to the factors. So, and just to point out a couple pages from Appendix C, page 22 is a City of Winnipeg economic report, and it discusses the pre-existing trend of more people working from home. Page 37 and 38 just has some charts relating to supply and demand, showing the amount of apartments that are coming on stream, as well as the breakdown by region. And then just for reference, page 43 would be the start of Appendix D. So that would have the background on our cap rate calculations in case you wanted to see the background and the supporting information there. Page 145 would be the start of Appendix E. That has the sales that we used for that sale price per suite table. And then page 149 would be Appendix F. We've included some pages on the assessor rebuttal just to show that there is some level of agreement with the cap rates by age. So that would be my cap rate presentation, and I'll just wrap it up by going back to the main brief. And if I could just get everyone to turn to page 9 of the main brief, just to tie this together. So our total expenses are $54,363. Our NOI is at $56,230. And with our 5.5% cap rate, we have an indicated value of 1,022,000 rounded, and that works out to a value of 92,900 per unit. Appendix for the brief starts on page 11, and we've included some photos to see the condition of the units. They're outdated and probably just average, as I alluded to in my questioning. And then the rest is just the financial information that we used. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thacker, do you have questions for the applicant?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. Looking on page 8, the table that you have there, it says good location. Do you have other tables for below good or above good locations, or is it just kind of one table?
No, so our base cap rates assume good quality properties in good locations. If we had a property that we deemed to be in a less than good location or a poor location, then we would make an adjustment to the cap rate.
Would you make an adjustment if it's above good location?
Well, there's no locations really that are above good.
No, you wouldn't agree that Corden's a very desirable area?
I would agree it's a good location.
Okay. No other questions.
Mr. Lorndale,
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread.
Just wondering if you can comment on the information that the assessor provided, a sale in 204 for 2777. Was that, it seems like it might be more than one apartment for sale. Do you have any information on that?
No, I didn't look into that sale, just given its just given the time frame that sale occurred.
No, I understand. It's quite a while ago, but it is a fairly large number. Clayton, Madam Chair, may I direct to
Of course.
Clayton, do you have any information on that sale and the amount?
I don't, unfortunately. I just, okay. Yeah.
Just an oddity for me. Thanks. No further questions.
And I don't have any further questions. You have rebuttal?
Yes, I do.
She's posted rebuttal. Is it okay with you, Clayton, if we go ahead and provide that rebuttal for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. We don't have it yet, right?
No. Yeah, everyone then distributed.
Yeah. Down at the bottom of the list there, applicant rebuttal for apartment.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Has everyone got that?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of the rebuttal, we start with the rebuttal of the 2390 McPhillips cap rate. So what we found is that the property was purchased with below market rents. Purchaser ads after purchase indicate that the rents have increased. We've not used the specific rents in our calculation, but it's just pointing to the fact that the purchaser could see that the rents were below market. And what we've done is we've calculated the cap rate with CMHC rents and vacancy. So if you turn to page 3, we have our workup for 2390 McPhillips. So using 2020 CMHC data, we calculate a cap rate at 5.59, and for reference, the assessor is at 4.79. Page 4 is an overview for 700 St. Mary's and 32 Arden. So 700 St. Mary's, what we found is that the property was bought with the intention to renovate, which is supported by a letter from the property manager. Essentially, the property was in rough shape with the prior owner not having done much for renovations. And then 32 Arden, there was a couple of issues here. There's some inconsistency in income reporting. So the laundry income was missing for 2018. And additionally, The property was renovated, indicating that there was intention when purchasing. So page 5 would essentially start the appendix to this rebuttal. So page 5 and 6 is the CMHC data, which is relating to the 2390 McPhillips sale. And then as well, page 7 is just the ad showing that the rents had gone up after purchase. On page 14, we have the letter from D7 Property Management. So this is for the 700 St. Mary's sale. And then page 15, what we have is an ad for 32 Arden showing that there were renovations and upgrades. Page 18, we have included the financial statements for 32 Arden over the various years, so you can see the differences in income. I won't go through all of those, but that starts on page 18. And then if I could just direct everyone to go to page 36. We've included a municipal board order, which essentially just speaks to the idea that properties that are purchased with the intent to renovate, where the income is going to be substantially affected afterward, should not be used as part of a cap rate study. And that would conclude my rebuttal presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Clayton?
Yeah, on the reason for using the CMHC rents, is it due to the ad that was found online?
The reason for using the CMHC rents is to use market level rents. The ad, we haven't directly used the rents from the ad. The ad just supports the idea that the rents were below market.
This ad that's posted is post-reference, correct?
So the ad was printed post-reference. I'm not sure what the exact date of the ad is, so it is possible.
No other questions.
Marcel, do you have any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Whitbridge?
We have none.
And I have no questions. Is there any further matters to be discussed? Any summary?
Do I get to present my rebuttal?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had some, so yes, of course.
Yeah.
That has also been distributed.
Pardon me?
That has also been distributed.
Okay.
It'll be in the same location.
All right.
Do I have to, 1 second, do I have to reload? I don't see that one. Hold on. I think I have to reload my information then. Let me have a look. Sorry. Hold
It's
on.
okay.
right at the bottom, Marcel.
Well, I know where it should be, but it's not there on mine.
Okay.
Why does it always do this to me in the morning?
It did it to you last night too.
No, last night it was the computer quit.
Oh.
Okay. I've got to exit and go back in again. I'm sorry.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Oh, there I see them. 1, 2. I'd only clicked on one, I guess. Download. Hopefully I got the right one this time. Oh.
It is, he just has to reload. It's on his end.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I can see it on yours, but for sure. So I just it's we didn't get it, you can also email it. Okay.
Still no luck?
It's loading. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You should have it memorized. We just went through it about 12 hours ago.
Yeah, the same one. I do remember it.
The same one.
I'll go through it quick here.
What's that, Clayton?
I'll go through it quick. I'll try to summarize it because you've seen this all before. So
Yeah, it's the exact same one as last night, so go
yeah.
ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll just kind of touch on 2390 McPhillips because that's the one that where the biggest dispute is, I guess, on page 3. The main difference is the rents. We used actual rents that they brought in rather than CMHC rents based on potentially what they're getting in the future on some post-reference ads. And we come to a capitalization rate of 4.79%. And that is all.
Right, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So are you aware that the rents at 2390 McPhillips are below market?
Not that I know of.
So you haven't compared with CMHC?
I haven't personally, no.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions.
All right. Marcel, do you have any questions?
Nope, no questions.
Richard?
No, I don't. Thank you.
And I have no questions. Is there any summary needed on all of that?
No, thank you.
No.
I'm good also.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to number 2, which is 530 Corrigan. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. File number is 221798. Roll number is 12021534000. Address is 530 Corridon Avenue. Assessed value is at $647,000. Is one building, 1-story high, built in 1986, with 5 suites and 3 outdoor parking stalls. On page 2, you can see there's a sale. I will speak about that a little bit later. Page 3 is the income value summary. So there's 5 2-bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $988.45. Gross effective income is 56,816. Expenses 27,698 for an NOI of $29,118 at a cap rate of 4.5%. Brings us to a value of $647,000. Page 4 again are the rent comparables. I think they're similar to last time. You can see it falls near the low end of the range of the average monthly rent per unit. Continuing on to page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 and forward are the income and expense mailers. You can see that they're reporting 39,900 NOI in 2020, 42,000 in 2019, and we're at just under 30,000. Page 13 is the MLS listing of the sale. You can see it was listed at $799, sold for over asking in pretty quick time of 12 days. And it was a verified sale, not associated. And yeah, then there's some information on the property in the description. You could even see on page 14, I don't know where this number comes from, but it's they post a net income of 49,526. Continuing on, we got some pictures on page 14 and forward. You can see the interior of the property. All the way down to the last page. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. So if we turn to your income value summary on page 3, so the cap rate assigned is 4.5. Would you agree that that would even be on the low end for a brand new property full of amenities?
I would say it's on the lower end, but our NOI is also very low, so.
Okay, and this property is wood frame construction from the 1980s, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And would you agree wood frame would generally not be considered as high quality as masonry, for example?
Yeah, I would say it's not as high quality, sure.
Okay, and regarding the sale shown, have you provided the sales questionnaire?
It was not provided to us,
Okay.
but it was verified by a colleague, so.
Okay. And then from your photos, would you agree that important rooms like the kitchen and bathroom appear to be original?
Yeah, maybe not the flooring, but the other stuff.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions for this property. And can I just ask that my previous questions on cap rate just be carried forward?
Of course.
Thank you.
Mr. Lorendo, do you have questions?
No questions.
Mr. Whitford, do you have a question?
A couple. Page 3, is that a model generated value all the way through?
That's correct.
Thank you. And you didn't show any permits to indicate any work to this property, did you?
No.
The flooring looks new to me, but I see no permits.
Yeah, generally you wouldn't need a permit for flooring.
No, if that was the only thing you were doing. Thank you. No further questions.
And I have no questions. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $529,000, as well as some photos of the exterior of the property. On page 5, we have our property description. So the property is located on Gordon Avenue between its intersections with Nassau Street North and Pembina Highway in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. The property consists of a 1-story apartment block that was built in 1986. The land area is about 3,600 square feet and is zoned RMFM. The total gross floor area is approximately 4,032 square feet, and the property has a total of 5 units, which are all 2 bedrooms, and there are 3 parking stalls noted. So you'll see the aerial photograph of the parcel, and on the next page, you'll see our Google Map view of the subject neighborhood. On page 9, we have an overview of our income approach. So the contention here is all cap rate. We are disputing the cap rate of 4.5% provided by the city, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study, which we've gone through previously. So based on the age of the property, our base cap rate is 5.5, and we've not made any further adjustments to that. So if you turn to page 10, we have done an income breakdown. So essentially here, we only had a partial year of financial data, specifically expenses for 2020. So what we've done just to narrow the issues is we are accepting the city's NOI of $29,118, and we're just looking at the cap rate specifically. So with our cap rate of 5.5 applied to that NOI, we get an indicated value of $529,000, which works out to $105,800 per unit, which is within range with what we're seeing in our cap rate study. So our appendix would start on page 12, and we've included the city valuation as well as the financial information that we had available. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Clayton, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah. Is there a reason that you didn't do a stabilization with the actuals? Because it seems like they provided mailers.
Yes, when I was looking at the 2020 mailer that they had, the expenses looked to just be a partial year. They were all extremely low. So based on that, I've not used the actuals, given that it seemed like there was missing information.
Okay. No further questions.
Any questions, Marcel?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Whitbread.
Vera, have you been to the property to inspect?
I've not inspected the interior of the property.
I'm just trying to understand the configuration of the suites. It says a basement included, which I can see by the photo. It appears that there are suites in the lower level or the basement. There wouldn't be a basement below that, would there?
I would assume not.
Okay. So 5 suites, one would assume 3 and 2 on each floor somehow configured.
I think that would be fair, but I don't have the specific details on the floor plan this time.
Thank you. No further questions.
My only question is this particular building is 25 years newer than the one previously. And it also, it's a little off the main drag of Corydon, right? It's a little further to the east, I guess, is probably the direction it is. And yeah, you kept the cap rate at 5.5. You didn't want to adjust that at all.
Yeah, I kept the cap rate at 5.5. I didn't think a location adjustment was warranted, and just based on the way that our age categories go, there sometimes is a large range. Like when we look at the low rise, 1960 to 1998 is a base cap rate of 5.5. So unless we're seeing something that really is warranting an adjustment, I won't make those adjustments. So for example, here too, like the amenities, in-suite laundry, individual entrances. So sometimes different factors will weigh in terms of not making an adjustment for something else.
Okay, thank you. That's all my question. Anyone wishes to provide a summary on those?
I guess I'll just say that the mailers are indicating 40,000 ish NOI. So if the cap rate was bumped up, the NOI should probably go up as well, because we seem quite low. And no knowledgeable seller would sell this property for like $300,000 less than they bought it for a couple of years ago. That's all.
Any summary?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 572 Corydon, number 3. You can go ahead when you're ready, Mr. Feather.
File number 222164. Roll number 12021856000. Address is 572 Corydon Avenue. Assessed value is at $868,000. It is 1 building, 2 stories high, built in 1959, with 11 suites and 8 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to page 3, the income value summary shows 11 one-bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $734.54. The gross effective income is $92,887. Expenses at $48,617. Gives us an NOI of $44,270 at a cap rate of 5.1%. Brings the value to $868,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables with similar suite mixes in the area. And it falls way below the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table showing the model cap rates. Page 8 and forward are the income and expense mailers, and it's actually combined with the property that we're looking at next at 578 Corydon. And if you look at the mailer, the NOI is about $92,000 after removing the roof repair because it is capital. So if you split that in half, it's about $46,000 NOI for each, and we're at $44,000. Continuing on to page 13 is just some information about the property. It talks about 22 unit Building beautifully upgraded, large apartments, upgraded wood style kitchen cabinetry, upgraded bathrooms with new vanities, basins, and tubs. Hardwood flooring adds to the character of the suite. And then a few other bits of information. Page 14 and on is some pictures. Unfortunately, there's no pictures of the interior. But yeah, with all those renovations and the lack of pictures, that probably would require an inspection and possible effective age on this property. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, thank you. So you mentioned that you're aware that this property operates together with 578 Cordon. Are you aware if a higher cap rate would have been assigned if they had been two buildings on one parcel rather than one building on two different parcels?
That I'm not too sure.
Okay, and then you've provided some sale information on page 2, but you haven't provided the sales questionnaire, is that correct?
That is correct. I believe those are multi-role sales.
So have you viewed the sale questionnaire or otherwise investigated the sale?
No, as soon as I saw that it was a multi-role sale, I did not.
Okay, so then you're not aware that it says that the sale is arm's length or non-arm's length, sorry, and it's written out as well on the form.
And that's why I didn't touch on it, because it was a multi-role sale.
Okay, that would conclude my questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Arnold,
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread.
I have none, thanks.
And I'm just wondering, do you don't have any permits, or you haven't, you said you hadn't inspected, but there's no permits to show any renovation?
Yeah, there's unfortunately no permits on the property and no information really regarding that.
Okay. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $684,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Cordon Avenue between its intersections with Daly Street North and Nassau Street North in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. So the property consists of a 2.5-story apartment block that was built in 1959. The land area is 6,018 square feet and is zoned RMFM. The subject property has 11 units, which are all 1 bedrooms, and there are 8 parking stalls noted. And this property is a twin building to 578 Cordon, which we'll be hearing next. So you'll see here the aerial photograph, as well as the Google map view. And if you turn to page 8, you'll see the overview of our income approach. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.1%, and we're applying a cap rate of 6%. So the base cap rate, given its age, would be 5.75, and we have applied a premium of 0.25% to this property, given that it is wood frame construction. The bones of the building are from the 1950s, so the building is aged. The assessor made a comment that perhaps an updated effective year should be done, but the reality is there is no updated effective year. And they've chosen not to do that in preparation for this cycle. Additionally, there's no amenities to speak of really in this building compared to what we're seeing with the new stock. We haven't made a specific condition adjustment, so we're assuming average to good condition. And additionally, the suite mix is not desirable. They're all 1 bedrooms. And what we're seeing in our cap rate study is that there's a desire for larger units, given that people are spending more time at home, working from home, etc. So I feel a 0.25 adjustment with those factors does make sense. And additionally, as I alluded to in my questioning, if this property was on the same roll as its sister building, there would likely have been an adjustment to the cap rate there to account for multiple buildings. So I feel 6% makes sense for this property. So if you turn to page 9, we have our income valuation breakdown. So we've applied rents of $90,577. We've applied a market level vacancy of 4.2%. Now the actual vacancy of the property is lower than the 4.2%. But the reason that we apply a market level vacancy is because a prudent investor would be conservative and would assume a market level vacancy. They can't reasonably expect a low vacancy like that to continue over the life of the property. And additionally, when we look at the low suite count of 11 units, a 4.2% vacancy is more than reasonable, given that if even one of these suites was vacant, we would have something above market closer to 10%. So that's the rationale for the vacancy. When we add in our other forms of income, we get an effective gross income of $89,677. We've stabilized the repair and maintenance for this property at $1,254 a suite. So our total expenses come to $48,644. And with our NOI of $41,033 and our 6% cap rate, we get an indicated value of $684,000, which works out to approximately $62,000 per suite. Now, just a note on the income valuation, since the property operates as a twin building, the 2020 financials were actually combined. So just for background, the 2020 column is just the totals times 50% to account for the fact that those statements were together. So our appendix starts on page 11, and we have the city valuation, the financial information, and then just for reference, we have on page 23, the R&M breakdown. So we didn't have a detailed breakdown for this one, so we've stabilized based on the totals. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dycham, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, just a couple. I know you touched on the vacancy a little bit there, but wouldn't you agree that a buyer could look at the 4 years of very low, consistent vacancy and assume that would be consistent going forward rather than going with a market rate that's much higher?
Based on our view of the vacancy, we believe a market vacancy is appropriate for the reasons mentioned, that even if the property had low vacancy, a conservative, prudent purchaser would assume some sort of level of market vacancy just to account for those elements of risk. So I hope that clarifies, but let me know if not.
Okay. I'll just continue on. Have you inspected this property?
I've not inspected the interior of this property.
Do you know if it's renovated or the condition of the inside?
We haven't made a specific adjustment for condition. So for the purposes of this exercise today, we're assuming somewhere between an average to good condition.
Would you not agree though with the renovations that were mentioned earlier that an effective age might be required here?
Whether it may be or not, the reality is it hasn't been done. And the assessment department chose not to go inspect this property either.
Okay, no further questions.
Marcel, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Richard?
I have none, thanks.
And I have no questions. Moving on to 578 Boardroom Avenue. Please go ahead.
File number 222165. Roll numbers 12021857000. And the address is 578 Corden Avenue. This is the sister property to the previous one at 572 Corden. The assessed value is at $783,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1959 with 11 suites and 8 parking stalls. Continue on to page 3. It's 11 one-bedrooms again, at an average monthly rent of $734.54. The gross effective income is $92,887. Expenses $52,964. Brings us to an NOI of $39,923 at a cap rate of 5.1%. Brings the value to $783,000. Again, it's the same comparables as last time. And it falls well below the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting your model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 and forward are the same income and expense mailers as before. As I stated before, the NOI is about 92,000 for the two, bringing the NOI to 46,000 for this one, and our assessed NOI is at 39, so we're quite low. Again, on page 13 and forward are the description and pictures of the property. It's the same information. It's beautifully upgraded apartments, upgraded wood style kitchen cabinetry, upgraded bathrooms. And then again, the same pictures as mentioned before. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
I have no new questions, thank you.
Okay. Martha?
You said this was a sister property, right? Basically the same building, isn't it?
I think it's pretty close to the same, yeah.
Why the difference between the two values? Were you not chasing the price on this one, or?
I'm not too sure. That's what the model gave us.
So the model's giving you this number on this one, and this exact same building next door gives you almost $100,000 more.
There might be some other things that I missed that are different. I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'm not a modeler, so I'm not too sure.
But it's unusual that two sister buildings would be that far apart when they're right next to each other, same condition, same age, same apartment count, same street.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not too sure. It could be due to like the mailers. They might be at a different vacancy, or I'm not too sure.
Well, you're using the model vacancy on it though, 4.2.
Yeah, or they could be generating different incomes. I'm not too sure.
You used a model on the incomes. You said it was a model.
Yeah, it's modeled.
So they're both modeled.
Yeah, but we still take into account the mailers that were submitted. Because in previous years, they weren't combined mailers.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Yes, it appears that the expense rate for each building is separate. About 5% difference between the two buildings, which contributes to a different NOI. Is that possible that there's some operating expenses show up in one building that not in the other, and that can contribute to the NOI and hence the different value?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That would explain it, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
I had exactly the same question about why the expenses would be that different, particularly when you noted at the beginning that they were jointly put in and just split in half.
Mm-hmm.
Why you would get such different expenses is odd on a model.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not a modeler. I'm not too sure how that works. I was just splitting them in half just for the sake of it being easier, but the previous years aren't split up, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $684,000. And given that it's a twin building to the other property, I'll just skip ahead past the property description. I'll just skip ahead to page 8, which is our overview of our cap rates. We're also applying a 6% cap rate to this property, same as the prior. On page 9, we have our income valuation. So we have rents of $90,305. We've again applied a market level vacancy of 4.2%. And with adding in the other forms of income, we have an effective gross income of $89,416. We've stabilized the repair and maintenance at $1,234 a suite. We have expenses of $48,391. And our NOI is $41,025. And with our 6% cap rate, we get an indicated value of $684,000. Our appendix starts on page 11, and it's similar to the last, where we have our city value, our financial statements. On page 23, we show our repair and maintenance breakdown. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spector, do you have any questions?
Just my comments from the vacancy perspective from the last property carried forward to this one. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Lorando,
No questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Whitbread,
No questions, thank you.
and I have no questions. And we'll just take a 5-minute recess.
That sounds like
Thank you. I'll call the hearing back to order. And we'll look at number 584 Gordon. Mr. Spector, you can go ahead when you're ready.
File number 221546. File number 120218588100. The address is 584 Cordon Avenue. Assessed values at $2,032,000. There's one building 2 stories high, built in 1960. It has 21 suites and 13 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to the page 3 income value summary. There are 6 1-bedrooms and 15 2-bedrooms, equaling 21 units at an average monthly rent of $891.09. The gross effective income is $215,124. Expenses at $109,455 brings the NOI to $105,669. Just looking at it, looks like it's mostly a cap issue. We're good on the NOI. The cap rate's at 5.2%, brings the value to $2,032,000. Page 4 is the rent comparables again, similar to before. Similar area and suite mix. Again, it falls at the end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table for our modeled cap rates. Page 8 and on is the income and expense mailers. And page 13 and forward are the pictures of the property, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I have no new questions. Thank you.
Mr. Lorando,
no questions.
Mr. Whitbread,
I have none, thanks.
and I have no questions. You can go ahead.
So if you turn to page 2 of the brief, we have our requested assessment of $1,916,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Cordon Avenue between its intersections with Daly Street North and Nassau Street North in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. The property consists of a 2.5-story apartment block that was built in 1960. The site size is 12,037 square feet and is zoned RMFM. The property has 21 units, which includes 6 1-bedrooms and 15 2-bedrooms, and there are 14 outdoor parking stalls. If you turn to page 8, we have the overview of our cap rate. So we are disputing the cap rate of 5.20%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study. So our base cap rate is 5.5%, and we've not deemed an adjustment warranted given some of the balance of the positive and negative features of the property. So for instance, this property has a better suite mix, has more skew toward larger bedrooms, for example. So we've not made an adjustment there. If you turn to page 9, you can see our income valuation. So the effective gross rent that we're using is $210,272. When adding in the other forms of income, we have an effective gross income of $216,839. Our expenses include repair and maintenance that's been stabilized at $1,615 per unit. And that gives us, in combination with our other expenses, a value of $111,476 for expenses. our net operating income comes to $105,362. And with our 5.5% cap rate gives us an indicated value rounded of $1,916,000, which works out to $91,200 per unit. So our appendix starts on page 11, and we've included some photos of the interiors of these suites. So you could see that the finishes are quite basic, but for what it is, it's in like decent condition. So we've not made a condition adjustment here. And then the remainder of the brief is the financial statements. For your reference on page 29, we have our repair and maintenance breakdown. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Setzer. Do you have questions?
No questions.
Mr. Lorendo,
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread,
No questions, thank you.
and I have no question. Moving on to number 6, which is 612 Corridon. Just an interesting aside. Every number seems to coincide with the number of the building. The 5 has a 5. Anyway, it's just weird.
That is weird.
It is.
We all there? We're good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
File number 222899. Roll number 12021869100. The address is 612 Corridon Avenue. Assessed value is $1.615 million. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1959 with no effective age. It is 20 suites with 9 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to page 3 is the income value summary. It has 21 bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $752.12. The gross effective income is $172,928. The expenses are $89,750. Brings us to an NOI of $83,178. The cap rate is at 5.15%, brings the value to $1,615,000. Again, same rent comparables on, page 4. Continuing on to page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the model cap rates. Continue on to page 8 is a permit for exterior work to replace brick with new acrylic stucco for $50,000. That was in 2018. Page 9 and on are the mailers, and looks like they were split up from January to October, then October on. But then the end of the year is September 21, so it's kind of hard to determine what was for that year. Continue on to page 15 are pictures and some information about the property. You can see that it's a renovated 1-bedroom and bachelor apartments for rent. Pictures on page 16 and forward show completely renovated kitchens, countertops, flooring, cabinets, stainless steel appliances, bathrooms renovated as well. So again, this most likely would require an inspection and an effective age applied to it. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have no new questions. Thank you.
Mr. Lorendo,
So I'll take it from your statement you haven't visited the apartment.
No, I've not.
So these pictures are all supplied by what?
It was from the website. Their
So you
website.
don't know, so you're not aware if all of them were done or just a portion?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Permit that was taken out was what?
There was no Like, there was no permits for the renovations. There was just a permit for the exterior work for whatever reason.
Okay. I've got no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread,
Yeah, do you have any comment on the transaction on October 2020? 1.8 million sworn value with a dollar. Can you?
Yeah, once we see the dollar sale, it's just an associated sale, so I didn't bother looking into it too much.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
and I have no questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $1,447,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Corden at its intersection with Daly Street North in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. The property is a 2.5-story apartment block that was built in 1959. And the land area is 9,027 square feet and is zoned C2. The property has 20 units, which are all 1-bedrooms, and there are 6 outdoor parking stalls noted. You'll see the aerial photograph as well as the neighborhood map. On page 8, we have the overview of our cap rate. So we're disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.15%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.75% based on our cap rate study. So the base cap rate, given the age, is 5.75%. And we note, based on the balance of the pros and cons of the property, we've not made a further adjustment to that. If you go to page 9, you'll see the overview of our income approach. So for this property, we had incomplete data. Essentially, we had 2 sets of partial financial data. So instead of trying to figure out what was applicable and what may be double counting, we've decided to accept the city's NOI to narrow the issues on this property. So with the NOI of $83,178 and our applied cap rate of 5.75%, we have an indicated market value of $1,447,000, which works out to $72,400 per unit. And the appendix starts on page 11, and we've included photos of the interior of the unit, similar to the assessor, as well are all the financial statements, so you can see the kind of 2 sets of partial data there. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Settler?
Yeah, just one. Would you not agree that the renovations, according to the pictures, are quite extensive and would require an effective age on this property?
I would agree that the renovations look quite modern, which is why I chose not to make a further cap rate adjustment as I had for some properties we heard earlier. But in regard to the effective age, at this point, it's speculation, considering it's not updated. So we're going with the information we have, and also keeping in mind that the structure of the building is still original to the 50s, like the bones of the building. So even with updated interiors, the structure still is what it is, but we've not made a further adjustment to the cap rate based on your comment, which we also note.
All right, no further questions.
Mr. Lordo.
What I was looking for was the sheets to show the previous rents for the previous years. Did they supply that?
I don't believe we had that, given that the property changed hands. So we weren't able to get the historical financials.
I might have some other questions. Go on to Richard now, please.
Mr. Whitbread?
I have no questions. Thank you.
My only question is, I know that age ranges are arbitrary, but it seems really odd that, the base rate for 1960 would be 5.75, and the base rate for 1959 would be 5.5, and this had one bedroom units only compared to the one previously. So it was, it just seemed a bit arbitrary that suddenly the base is 5.75 for this.
So in terms of the base cap rates, yeah, I can see your point. Going to 1959, the base rate is 5.75, and then the next year of 1960 is 5.5.
Correct.
I mean, I get your point, but we do have to have the cutoffs at a certain point there.
Particularly when this one is renovated as well. So anyway, that's fine. Thank you. You don't have any further questions, Marcel? You're good?
We will have it in our discussions later.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, which is 700 Gordon.
Okay, it's file number 221897, roll number 12022252000, and the address is 700 Gordon Avenue. The assessed value is at $3,233,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1956 with an effective year built of 1976. There's 21 suites and 17 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 is the income value summary. There are 9 1-bedrooms and 11 2-bedrooms, giving us a total, and 1 bachelor unit, giving us a total of 21 units at an average monthly rent of $1168.52. Our gross effective income is $282,099. Expenses $123,672, brings us to an NOI of $158,427 at a cap of 4.9%. Brings the value to $3,233,000. Again, page 4 are the rent comparables. You can see similar suite mixes in the area, and it falls near the low end of the range of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 is a permit for alterations. It's hard to read. It was from 2013, and it was to convert an existing laundry room to gym, reconfigure existing boiler room into a new laundry room, and it was for $80,000. Page 9 is another permit, and it was for interior alterations and replacing of kitchen cabinets, replacing flooring, parking, and electrical upgrades, and it was for $275,000, and that was in 2012. On page 11 page 10 and 11 are some income and expense mailers. You can see they noted 167,000 NOI in 2020, 185 in 2019, and 160 in 2018, and we're just under 160,000 on our model NOI. Page 14 is a little information about the property. I'm not going to go through this all, but there's newly renovated suites with modern finishes. Kitchens are updated with stunning granite countertops and full-size stainless steel appliances. Each suite benefits from new walnut hardwood flooring, large windows with plenty of natural sunlight, and newly renovated bathrooms. Continuing on to page 15 and forward, you can see the work that they did in the common areas for bike storage, laundry room, the gym. You could see the suites that are completely renovated with the granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, cabinetry, flooring. The bathrooms on the last page, you can see all the work that was done in there. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I have no new questions. Thank you.
Mr. Lordo?
No new questions.
Mr. Whitbread,
No questions, thank you.
and I have no questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $3,127,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is on Corden Avenue between its intersections with Coburn Street North and Hugo Street North in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. So the property is a 2.5-story apartment block that was built in 1956 with an effective age of 1976 assigned. The land area is 12,031 square feet and it's zone C2. The property has 21 units, which is 1 bachelor, 9 one-bedrooms, and 11 two-bedrooms. And there are 17 outdoor parking stalls noted. You'll see the aerial view of the property as well as the Google Map view. And on page 8, we have our cap rate overview. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 4.9%. We're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our study. So based on the effective year of 1976, we have a base cap rate of 5.5. And again, given the balance of the positive and negatives of the property, we have not made an adjustment. We are sticking with the 5.5. So if you look at page 9, that's our valuation overview. So we're using rents of $283,599. We are applying a vacancy similar to the city. We're using a 3-year average at 4.5%. And when accounting for the other forms of income, we have an effective gross income of $284,940. Our expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance at $961 a unit for total expenses of $112,943. Our NOI is $171,997. And with our cap rate of 5.5, we have an indicated market value of $3,127 rounded, which works out to $148,900 per unit, which is in line with what we're seeing. Page 11 is the start of the appendix. So I've included some interior photos showing interiors of the suites and the building overall. And then the remainder of the pages is our financial statements. On page 25, we have our repair and maintenance breakdown. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, do you have any questions?
Just one question. On page 8, the table that you use, I know you take or you add points to the cap rate if there's negatives to the property. Looking at this one, it looks like it checks all these boxes. Do you ever take off a quarter point or a point on the cap rate or when it checks all these boxes off?
Well, so our base cap rates are already assuming good quality properties in good locations. So this is a good quality property in a good location. So there's not an adjustment downward necessary since the base cap rates are already assuming the best as kind of the baseline. I hope that answers.
Well, but like you've taken off a quarter point, say, for wood construction. This is masonry construction. It has a lot of amenities. It's in good condition. It's nearly 1-to-1 parking, and the suite mix is pretty good. So would you say that's above the baseline?
No, I wouldn't say it's above baseline. I mean, the renovations are accounted for in the effective age because the structure is still unique to the 50s. And yeah, masonry construction is a better quality. It does have amenities, but in terms of parking, 1-to-1 would just be sufficient. It's not something we would consider to be a huge plus, especially if you look at buildings that have more suites skewed toward 2 bedrooms. Just a 1-to-1 parking wouldn't really be like a huge positive, but it would be sufficient. So yeah, I don't feel a downward adjustment on the cap is necessary here because we're already capturing everything in the base.
Okay, no other questions.
Mr. Morneau?
So your total expenses are 112,000, 39%. The city was at 43%. So you're still coming in with a higher NOI than the city at 171, correct?
That's correct.
Or no, on this one, you've got the rents going back the years. So you're using the actual rents, correct?
That's correct.
And you use the actual on the expenses. When were the renovations done on the building? Were they all, was it done periodically through the building, or was it one big shot, or?
I'm not sure on the exact timeline of the renovations, whether they were all done together or done over time. I would assume generally what we're seeing is that the suites are renovated as they turn over. But I'm not entirely sure for this specific property what the timeline was.
In 2020 seemed to have a 9% vacancy rate. Everything else was always fairly low. I was wondering if there was more done then, or was there a reason for the 9% in 2020?
I'm not completely sure. I think that could be a fair comment, that more renos could have been done in 2020.
Because the rents were higher. Yeah, the rents are higher in 2020, but the vacancy is higher. Correct?
Yeah,
you're showing an income of in 2020 of 283. Am I reading that right?
yeah, you're reading that correct.
279. So the 9%. 58. I'm just trying to figure out why it's stabilizing out so much higher. Because you're stabilizing it at the effective gross rent is stabilized at 270. The actual for 2020 was 258, 275. It was that 9% that affected it. What year are we using for this assessment? 2020, right?
Yeah, 2020. So we're using the potential market gross rents from 2020, and then we're applying a lower vacancy, like more of a market level vacancy, which is why the effective gross rent in the stabilized column is different than the 2020 column.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions?
Just to confirm, no, never mind, wrong person. It's okay, no question.
And I have no questions. Mr. Sessler, we'll move on to the last item on our agenda, which is 8:30 Corridor. Please go ahead when you're ready.
I still got to open up mine. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Just give me. I'm falling behind here. I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay, file number 221547. Roll number is 12022673000. Address is 830 Corridor Avenue. Assessed value is at $3,937,000. It is one building, 3 stories high, built in 1931 with an effective year built in 1972. There are 30 suites with 26 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3, the income value summary shows 31 bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $1026.21. Our gross effective income is $353,920. Expenses at $157,070. Brings the NOI to $196,850 at a cap rate of 5%. Brings the value to $3,937,000. Page 4 again is the rent comparables. Try to find similar suite mixes and area. You can see once again it falls near the low end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 is a permit for interior alterations, interior renovation, work to include replacing kitchen cabinets, replacing flooring, painting, and electrical upgrades, window replacement to PVC of the same size. And that was in 2013, valued at $250,000. Page 9 and forward are the income and expense mailers that were provided. And looking at the 2020 mailer, once removing the mortgages and transfers, the NOI is about $205,000 and we're at 196, so we're slightly lower. On to page 14 and forward are some pictures and information about the property. You see spacious character apartments located on the highly sought after Corden Avenue. Page 15 on are some pictures of the interior. You can see on page 16 the upgraded kitchens with new cabinets, stainless steel appliances, countertops. Page 17 is a picture of the bathroom. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I have no new questions, thank you.
Mr. Lorendo?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Whitbread?
Just one, Clayton, and it comes back to pretty much all of the items on this docket. Did you make any effort to meet with the applicant to resolve some of these items? They're all pretty much less than $200,000 separating your value and her value.
No, I didn't. I didn't have time to do that.
So it's a time management issue, was it?
Yeah.
Thank you. No other questions.
And I have no further questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $3,760,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Corden between its intersections with Lilac Street and Arbuthnot Street in the Earl Grey area of Winnipeg. So the property is a 3.5-story apartment block that was built in 1931 with an effective age of 1972. The land area is 18,062 square feet and is zoned C2. The property has 30 units, which includes 6 bachelors and 24 one-bedrooms, and there are 30 outdoor parking stalls. So if you turn to page 8, you'll see our overview of our cap rate. So we're disputing the cap rate of 5%, and we're using a cap rate of 5.5% based on our cap rate study. Our base cap rate for a 1972 effective age is 5.5, and we've made no further adjustments. We have our income valuation on page 9. So we're using effective gross rents of $323,284. And when accounting for the other forms of income, we have an effective gross income of $341,080. Our total expenses include stabilized repair and maintenance at $873 a unit. We have total expenses of $134,297. Our net operating income is $206,783. And with a 5.5% cap rate, gives us an indicated value of $3,760,000, which works out to $125,300 per unit. On page 11 is the start of our appendix. So we've included some interior photos of the suites. As well, we have our financial information. On page 22, we have our repair and maintenance breakdown. So it's a 3-year breakdown based on the data that we had available rather than 5-year. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Mr. Sheffer?
No questions.
Mr. Lorendon?
No, I'll be good.
Mr. Whitbridge?
None, thank you.
And I have no questions. So that brings us to the end of our docket today. And I can't find the piece of paper that I'm supposed to read from here. Wow. All very
That concludes all the matters for this meeting, right?
right. That includes all the matters that we were to talk about today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
5 minutes, Madam Chair? While we
Pardon?
get- Are we taking 5 minutes while we get ready or what?
Go ahead. Yeah.